In a quiet village nestled between the hills of Nsuka and the vast forests that stretched toward the river Niger, there lived two childhood friends, Chuka and Amaka. They had grown up together under the wide skies of eastern Nigeria, chasing grasshoppers in the bush, learning under the shade of the iroko tree, and dreaming of a day when they could lift their families from poverty. Their village, Umuolu, was known for its red earth, long dry seasons, and stories passed down by moonlight. Life was hard. Water came from far-off streams, jobs were scarce, and most people survived by farming or petty trade. But Chuka and Amaka had promise. Amaka with her quiet wisdom and kind heart, and Chuka, sharp-tongued and ambitious, always ready to speak or fight his way out of a situation. One hot harmattan morning, news reached the village like a bird's cry. A big company in Enugu called Omife Holdings was hosting open interviews for youth across the southeast. The jobs came with training, monthly salary, and even accommodation. It was a rare opportunity, and anyone chosen would escape the cycle of poverty. Chuka and Amaka were thrilled. With the little money they had saved from farm work and errands, they set off, carrying nothing but a change of clothes, some bread wrapped in leaves, and a deep hope in their hearts. The journey to Enugu would take 2 days on foot, through old bush roads and motor parks. On the morning of the second day, as the sun rose over the dusty hills, they passed a lonely settlement just before the city. There they saw something unusual. A frail old woman, bent with age, struggling under the weight of a clay pot filled with water. Her steps were slow and painful, and every few meters she would stop to rest. The pot looked ready to slip. Amaka's heart immediately stirred. "Chuka, wait," she said. "We should help Mama carry that water. She looks like she may fall." Chuka turned sharply. "Falke? Amaka, no. Do you know what time it is? The interview is in less than 2 hours. If we miss it, everything we suffered on this journey is wasted." "But what if she collapses here?" Amaka replied. "What if it was your own mother?" Chuka hissed and looked at the sky. "These city people will not wait for us. Let someone else help. We can't help everybody." But Amaka had already gone to the old woman, gently lifting the pot from her arms. "Let me help you, Mama," she said. The old woman's eyes filled with tears. "God will bless you, my daughter." She led Amaka to her compound, a tiny mud house behind a grove of plantain trees. Chuka followed reluctantly, his eyes darting between his wristwatch and the winding road to Enugu. When they arrived, the old woman sat on a wooden stool and caught her breath. "You have a good heart," she said. "Not many stop to help someone like me anymore." From the folds of her wrapper, she brought out a small... "Inside this gourd is a small piece of true gold. It is not for spending recklessly. It is for remembrance and for unlocking doors the eyes cannot see." Amaka was stunned. "Mama, I didn't help you for reward." "And that is why you are worthy," the old woman said, and her eyes gleamed. By the time Amaka and Chuka reached the Omife Holdings building in Enugu, the security men were locking the gates. Chuka exploded in frustration. "See what you've done? Because of a stranger, we've lost our only chance." But Amaka said nothing. She just held the gourd close. That night, as they slept near a mechanic's shop by the roadside, rain fell and Amaka prayed silently. The next morning, something unexpected happened. The company had experienced network issues and decided to extend the interviews by a day. Amaka entered and did her best. Chuka, still angry and bitter, refused to go in, saying, "They've already made up their minds." Weeks passed. Then one day a letter arrived in Umuolu. Amaka had been offered the job. She was to resume immediately. Chuka watched the villagers cheer for her and felt the bitterness twist inside him like a knife. He returned to his father's compound in silence. No celebration, no job, only regret. But after many restless nights, he couldn't shake the image of the old woman. Maybe if he went back to help her too, his luck would change. So Chuka left in secret and went searching for the woman. After days of wandering, he found her again, still living quietly in her mud hut. "I came to help," he said stiffly. The woman nodded. "Help, then." Chuka carried water, cleaned the compound, and even fetched firewood. After 3 days, while cutting grass near the back of her house, he noticed something. A broken clay pot half buried under the soil. Curious, he dug it out. Inside were shiny gold nuggets, gleaming like sunlight trapped in stone. Later that evening, the old woman sat by her fire and said softly, "In the backyard there's a pot I buried long ago. If your heart is right, bring it to me." Chuka smiled to himself. That night he stole the gold. He took it all, wrapped it in cloth, stuffed it into his bag, and fled while the village slept. He boarded a bus the next day, ready to start a new life with the gold. But on the 3rd day of travel, strange things began. He started hearing whispers, his name called from nowhere. His shadow danced even when he stood still. The gold in his bag began to burn like fire. He started forgetting things, his own name, why he was traveling, what city he was in. He began laughing at goats, shouting at the wind, walking barefoot through markets and eating sand. People said he had run mad. Villagers in Umuolu heard the tale. Chuka, the brilliant boy, now roaming the streets of Aba, mad and muttering, with rags full of gold that no one dares touch. But Amaka thrived. She used her earnings to build a borehole for the village, sponsor young students, and help her widowed mother. The golden gourd still sat on her table unopened, its power intact, not just because of what it held, but because of what it meant. It had been 5 years since Amaka left Umuolu village for Enugu. In those years, her name had spread across towns like harmattan dust on dry roads. She was now known as Amaka Indioma, Amaka the Good One. She had risen in the ranks at Omife Holdings, not by bribery or sharp talk, but through her honesty, compassion, and calm wisdom. Everyone respected her, from the gatekeeper to the chairman. She used part of her salary to build a new school in Umuolu and to send orphans to school. Yet she remained humble, often walking barefoot when she returned home. The gourd of gold still sat on her windowsill, unopened. She never spent it. It was her reminder that there is power in patience, beauty in humility, and reward in doing good without expecting anything in return. But trouble was brewing elsewhere. The madman of Aba, in the city of Aba, a man with wild eyes and torn clothes, roamed the streets. People called him Otuaka, the gold madman. He carried a filthy sack full of shining stones, which he would throw at goats and chickens, screaming, "Na my destiny, give me back my chance." Children mocked him. Adults crossed the road when they saw him. They didn't know he was once Chuka, the brightest boy in Umuolu. No one did, except one woman. The old woman from the bush, Mama Aneka, the one with the clay pot and the hidden gold, had long known what would happen. One evening she sat by her fire, shaking her head slowly. "The boy failed his second test," she whispered, "but his story is not over." She went to her backyard, dug up a small wooden box, and removed a stone covered in ancient Igbo symbols. She rubbed it in oil, spoke to the wind, and summoned a vision of Chuka. Far away, the madman froze, his head tilted like he heard something from the earth itself. Then he ran, barefoot, bleeding, laughing, and weeping at once. Amaka was preparing to travel home for her mother's 60th birthday. Her driver was ready. Food items were packed and her phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from elders and churchwomen back in Umuolu. That same day, as the sun began to fall, a strange man walked into the village barefoot. His hair was matted, his eyes were wild. He wore rags and muttered to himself. Children ran screaming. Women whispered in fear. Only the village priest, Father Chibundu, recognized something behind the madness. "That face, it looks like Chuka, the boy who vanished after the interview," he said. The madman collapsed at the entrance of the new school Amaka had built. He clutched his sack of gold like a baby and fell asleep. When Amaka returned the next morning, the whole village was gathered. Some shouted, "Take him to the shrine." Others said, "He is cursed." But Amaka knelt beside him and touched his shoulder. At her touch, Chuka opened his eyes. He blinked. "Amaka," he croaked, his voice like dry leaves. She gasped, "Chuka, is it really you?" He nodded slowly, tears falling like broken rain. "I took the gold. I ran. And I lost my mind. I lost me." The village grew quiet. Then, from behind the crowd, came the sound of a walking stick hitting the ground rhythmically. Mama Neka had arrived. She was older now, but her eyes were still bright, still wise. She came forward, looked at Chuka, then at Amaka. "Two children I tested," she said. "One passed, one failed. But life is not a straight road. Even a goat that strays can still find the pen." She raised her hand and murmured a prayer. Then she poured water from her pot onto Chuka's head. The village watched. And then, it happened. Chuka sat up straighter. He blinked again, clearer this time. He looked around. "What happened?" he asked, his voice steady for the first time in years. Mama Neka smiled. "You remembered, but the story did not end there." Mama Neka turned to Amaka and said, "You kept the gourd untouched. That discipline alone is rare. But now, open it." Amaka trembled. Carefully, she peeled off the palm fronds and opened the gourd. There was no gold inside, only a small piece of paper, wrapped tightly and dry. She opened it. It read, "True wealth lies in what you do for others. You have already used the gold, without spending a single kobo." And as the villagers watched, the gourd turned to ash in her hands and blew away on the wind. Mama Neka turned to go, but before she left, she said, "Chuka has one last choice. Will he return to greed or serve with humility?" Chuka chose to stay in Umuolu. He helped teach the children at Amaka school. He walked the farms. Slowly, the village forgave him, and his madness became a distant memory. Amaka continued to shine but never looked down on anyone. And as for Mama Neka, no one ever saw her again. Her house disappeared. Some said she was a spirit, others said she returned to the hills where the ancestors lived. But one thing remained, a proverb carved into the school wall in bold Igbo letters. "The man who runs without being chased is running from something inside himself." And they all lived, not in riches, but in wisdom, peace, and purpose. The end.